So if we haven't seen it already, the now viral video of Ron Magill at the Miami-Dade County Commission meeting from Wednesday, we should take a look at that right now. Ron, give us some exposition. How do we come up to this moment where you're at a microphone at a during public comment in a county commission meeting?
Well, I live in a place called Calusa Condor, which is right adjacent to the Calusa Golf Course, which is now being rezoned for 550 homes in a place that has some of the worst traffic. But more importantly for me, from an environmental side, it is home to a variety of wildlife that has since called that piece of property home, specifically a rookery now, where there are many, many birds nesting and breeding in that rookery. And when I heard about this happening, and I heard how it came about, this developer is basically, they're calling it community outreach. They had a settlement that had to be kept totally secret. There's non-disclosed agreement that these homeowners signed. Homeowners that I must point out at the very beginning of this were totally against this development. They were against. So when the original developer wanted to rezone it, they said, no, we're totally against it. But then all of a sudden, he started offering tens of thousands of dollars, in some cases, Billy, hundreds of thousands of dollars to these owners to flip sides and sign a petition. I'm just tired. I'm tired of developers' money dictating what happens in our community at the expense of the community.
And there's no one who really speaks on behalf of the wildlife. There's no representatives really for them. And when you have a situation where wildlife, and in this case, endangered wildlife, has moved into and made its home and have created a habitat for itself there, who speaks for them? Certainly not the developers, right?
No, the developers don't. And what happened was, what they did was they turned in these studies, Billy. This is a classic example of what a sham this is. They turned in the studies. They said, this one study said, no, there was no nesting there. We went in and did a study. Yeah, they did a study in December. The nesting season isn't until the end of January into May.
Are you suggesting they did that on purpose? They deliberately went outside of nesting season so they wouldn't find these?
Listen, I don't know what they did on purpose, but the bottom line is that's like me going to Minnesota in August and saying it doesn't snow in Minnesota. Okay, this is like ridiculous. It's the kind of stuff that really ticks me off. Then they had paid consultants go in and do studies. You can't have paid consultants. You have to have independent organizations. You have to have the U.S. Fish and Wildlife. You have to have the Fish and Wildlife Commission. You got to have Bat Conservation International. They were not allowed access in there to do the studies. Now, that's the good thing that came out of this meeting. We forced these folks to now, okay, yes, we're going to have these studies done. And Durham, stepped up to the plate and said, no, we're going to force them to have to go in there and do the studies during the nesting season. They're going to have to basically admit, no, this is a rookery. It has to be protected. So I think they're going to have to make adjustments to this because according to what happened yesterday, now, I don't know, Billy, I've been here in this county now for a long time, 50 years, and I don't know what to believe anymore, but commissioners and Durham said they're going to have to meet this new, rules that have been set about that they have to meet if there is in fact a rookery there, that they have to not build in this area, they have to build a buffer around this area. And the developer, of course, said, yes, we'll do that. Yes, we'll do that. Yes, we'll do that. I've seen and heard this before. I'm going to be here to make sure that's accountable. I promise you.
For those playing at home, rookery is the word of the day. That's whenever you hear the word rookery, you do a shot. Ron, I want to give a little bit of background on this because this is almost a textbook case of how it's like a Carl Hiaasen novel of how unscrupulous developers get away with, in some cases, murder of wildlife in this case. And there's some new twists thrown in here, as you alluded to, about the divide and conquer tactics of the developer to split the community and pit neighbor against neighbor here by paying some of them paying about 123 out of 5,000 of them off, enough to win the day here. So what's happening is this Calusa neighborhood in Kendall, in southwest Miami-Dade, and this is a lesson for anybody around the country when you're looking at bought and paid for government and developers literally having their way with your government. And some excellent reporting this week by Linda Robertson in the Miami Herald on this. In 1967, the Calusa Covenant basically said that this property had to remain parks and recreation space, a golf course, for 99 years. And also the county's master plan, in fact, required it unless 75% of the abutting homeowners, so those are the homeowners that live around the only those who live around the golf course itself agreed to lift it. In 2003, Facundo Bacardi, yes, that Bacardi, the chairman of the rum empire, multi-billionaire, Facundo Bacardi, who I imagine his friends call him for short, Fuck Bacardi, he bought the country club for the bargain price of $2.7 million, knowing that it was restricted by this covenant and zoned as parks and recreation. That's why the land was so cheap. This whole neighborhood is about 1 square mile. And soon after, the golfers started to notice the deterioration of the course. They were blighting the course on purpose. And then after multiple hurricanes, Wilma and Katrina in 2005, the clubhouse got damaged. It was never reopened. And then by 2011, they just closed the damn thing and allowed it to be reclaimed by nature, which I imagine is when some of this wildlife started to move in. Then what happened is Bacardi offered the homeowners money to waive the covenant. They told him to go pound sand, as Ron said. They were totally against it. So then Bacardi sued them. and he lost. The covenant was upheld in 2016, but then he said he'd continue to sue them. And so now the homeowners are exhausted. He now comes again with a checkbook, agrees to add like 50 feet to their backyards, give them more property, and agrees to pay them off. And he finally gets 123 of them to sign these waivers and non-disclosure agreements. And in October of 2020, he convinces, because Bacardi, he convinces the Miami-Dade County Commissioners to release the covenant. And months later, he sells the property that he bought for $2.7 million in 2003 for $32 million plus a 35% stake in this venture. 2 days later, the developers sent in this application to build these 550 single-family residences, not affordable housing that we need in this county, but luxury single-family homes. Now, let's talk about the quality of life issues. We've talked about the wildlife concerns. What about the quality of life issues? What about the traffic? What about school overcrowding? What about infrastructure? The county never seems to pave a road or build a new school or even fix broken schools, but yet they can just put more people everywhere. And we're running out of space, right? And resources.
It's absolutely the truth. Billy, what's happening here, they came up with this big traffic guy who talked about the traffic thing, and the only traffic that he talked about was how they were going to get in and out of that complex. But it didn't talk about where they're going, onto 104th Killian Drive, on the Kendall Drive, which is already gutted with people. I live there. I have to deal with that nightmare every day. I can't even comprehend what 550 additional homes is going to dump onto those two arteries. It's going to be intolerable. It's just going to be an absolute nightmare.
And if you have school-age children going to school in those neighborhoods, in already overcrowded schools,
packed.
Right?
The school is already done. They already have to bus kids from that neighborhood out further west to the hammocks. And that's why I got to really throw props to Commissioner Joe Martinez, because he said, no, this isn't going to work. He said no, and he didn't vote for it. Same with Sally Hayman. But Commissioner Martinez, his district abuts that district. He said, this is going to overflow into my district, and he said no. And I got to really tip my hat to him, because these developers, I'm sitting there with the highest priced attorneys behind me, big time lobbyists behind me, and we've just got homeowners there that are only allowed 1 minute to speak.
Let's talk about process for a moment before we get into the commissioners. Let's talk about the process of how it's designed to discourage the public from participating in their own government. First of all, this meeting is on a Wednesday at 9 a.m. or whatever the hell time it is, where nobody in town either knows it's happening, has time to go there, because we've all got 3 jobs that we have to get to. You specifically took time off. And you mentioned that, by the way, everybody who was there in favor of this was being paid. And everybody who was there against it were either people not being paid or people who refused to take the payoff money from the developers. And yet those residents and Ron Magill, you were treated like second or third class citizens. And you had Raquel Regalado, the commissioner for your district in the county. Basically, I can only describe her as acting like an attorney or lobbyist for these developers. Talk about the process of and the limitations on your ability to speak and interact with your own government.
Well, what can I say in 1 minute? As it was, I was cut off, and that was it. And I realized that was the name of the game. But the bottom line is this: the developer got up there, got an hour and a half hour and 15 minutes
Right.
to speak, and none of the homeowners spoke. It was just the developer who spoke because, again, they couldn't speak. They were paid to just be there, wear their red shirts, and just be there. Guys, this isn't rocket science. I was born at night, but not last night. When you see all of this being driven by money, my gosh, to me, it's a bribe. It's a flat-out bribe to change. And again, my hat's off to Commissioner Martinez because he flat-out said it in the meeting. He said, listen, guys, I see all of you people in the red shirts. You're the same people who were totally against this. You were totally against this. And now all of a sudden, you get paid money and you're for it. It doesn't pass the smell test, brother. And that's what's happening in government now. It's these developer dollars and lobbyists are driving the decisions. And I'm done with it, man. I'm done. And listen, I had to go there as a private citizen because I'm forbidden to speak as a county employee.
Sure.
Okay. I'm forbidden. So I go there as a private citizen. I'm still waiting from somebody for the county to tell me, why did you do that? Or try to even suggest, because I want to make them put it in writing. And say, you put that in writing. I'll be damned if I'm going to have anybody in the county tell me what I can say as a private citizen. If I'm not breaking the law, it's none of your business what I do as a private citizen.
You only lost that vote 10-2. So are you concerned about someone coming after you, coming after your job?
Sure. I'm concerned, but I'm willing to accept it. I mean, listen, guys, if me being afraid to lose my job is going to affect my ethics, then I'm a hypocrite. I'll just stand up and I'll scream as hard as I can, and I'll have everybody I know just understand what happened here. That we cannot tolerate this. Listen, Billy, I'm not totally against all development of that golf course, but when the covenant was broken, the only thing that was allowed when the covenant was broken, that they could build 30 homes on that golf course. And I said, okay, I can accept that,
Sure.
okay? Get the place clean, keep a green space, put 30 homes on there, that's fine. 30 to 550? Please!
I had to ask you about this. Did your county commissioner, did Raquel Regalado reach out? Did she say, we need to have a community meeting? We need to I don't listen to 123 residents of this neighborhood out of 5,000 of them. We need to have a conversation about, as you said, how to come to terms with responsible development for this community.
Well, in all fairness to Commissioner Regalado, because of sunshine laws, they're not allowed to discuss this project with anybody.
I don't think that's true. I think she could have had a sunshine meeting. She could have had a community meeting or a town hall meeting. I think you think she didn't hear from the lobbyists? You think she didn't hear from the developers? You didn't think she didn't hear from the Bacardi empire? You think? I mean, listen, that's the scary thing, as you put it. Unlimited time for the developers and their lobbyists. Unlimited. And then I'm sorry, did you notice some of the commissioners just get up and walk away at public comment? You guys have come down there. You take up your own time to speak to your government, and then they get up and they leave.
Again, Billy, I got to say, in all fairness, that the chairman told us that they were just going to have lunch and they'd be watching in the room on the television. They would be watching all the proceedings. So I got to take him for his word on that.
I'm sorry. Did they go have lunch while the developer and their lobbyists were talking, or only when the public comment came on? Yeah, that's what I thought. So they get up and they leave. They leave it's utterly disrespectful. It's actually disdain. Here's what, unfortunately, the takeaways from this meeting for me are: the residents need to hire lobbyists in order to access their own commissioners for more than 60 seconds, right?
Okay, you're right.
Yeah,
you're right.
You guys should probably just pool your money and hire the same lobbyists the developers do. Everything in County Hall is designed to discourage and dampen the public participation section of it, including cutting you off with seconds, and you're almost done. In fact, you know what? Hang on. Finish. What would you have said if you had more time? In the words of Denzel Washington in Man on Fire, I wish you had more time. What if you had more time? What else would you say?
Basically, what I was going to tell them was, listen, this is a classic example of how incentivizing people with money for instant gratification leads to, long-term disaster. The bottom line is we did not inherit this earth from our parents. We're borrowing it from our children. We have a moral obligation to preserve these areas for our kids. We are passing down a huge stain on the environment that we are causing because of our immediate greed. And where does it end? The whole premise behind the whole meeting yesterday was that, they're saying by 2024 there's going to be no more single-family homes for people to buy in South Florida. Okay, well, you know what? Then it's done. Close the doors. When does it stop? Okay? When does it stop? Because that's ridiculous. You can't just say, we always have to make places for people to live. At what expense? At what expense?
Is this sustainable, Ron? Is the development sustainable? Do we have enough clean water? Do we have enough land? Do we have enough resources?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And that's where politicians are going to have to, have the integrity and the guts to finally say enough is enough. We cannot do this. And if it means that people can't move here, we have to wait for people to die to buy their house, then we have to do that. Okay, that's the bottom line. That's what makes this place so beautiful. We're gonna lose that beauty. A lady brought up a point which was really interesting. In New York, there's no place to build anymore. Are they going to build over Central Park? Is that going to happen? And then the drill. Well, Central Park is a public property. This is not a public. It's private. The premise is you're not going to lose all of your green space in critical areas because of developers' money. I just don't think that this was made available. The county missed a huge opportunity to buy that property at $2.7 million.
The county never misses an opportunity to miss an opportunity. But let's extrapolate out that Central Park conversation, because the reality is that by county master plan and by covenant, this was supposed to remain an open green space, parks and recreation space for at least 99 years. And I believe in a conversation that some of the Save Calusa folks attempted to have with the developers, they wanted a park, for public access. And the developers told them to go pound sand, or they're not going to provide a public park space. They just want to build more houses so they can make more money. So there's zero benefits here to the community at large, to the 5,000 residents, only benefits to the 123 who were paid off. Incidentally, because they had non-disclosure agreements, correct me if I'm wrong, Ron, all of the pro people from the neighborhood, the neighbors, they didn't speak. They didn't utter a single word at the meeting because contractually they were bound by the developers who paid them off.
Right. And part of their agreement was they had to show up in red shirts to that meeting.
They dictated the wardrobe as well. This is, what this comes down to? This reminds me of a very scary, scary thing. And that is when Fidel Castro took over in Cuba and declared it a communist nation. One of the first things he did was deprive people of their private property rights. He said the state gets to decide. And by state, he meant him and his cronies, right? A dictator and his cronies. And is that what's happening here? Are we seeing the government being hijacked by oligarchs in this case, or by cronies? And private property rights are being denied, being literally ripped out from underneath you and given away to friends of the state.
I hope not, Billy. I hope not. I just know, listen, I'm doing this during my lunch hour because I'm not allowed to even have this conversation with you during work hours. So I've got to do this during my lunch hour. It's just, there is a certain control factor that I'm not in step with. And I know that a lot of people downtown consider me a little bit of a loose cannon, but I'm going to continue to speak out when I see things like this happening, because this to me was almost borderline criminal. It
was my understanding that a lot of the commissioners were not happy that you were there, and they were not happy that you were there in no small part because your presence magnified the issue. It put a spotlight on something that tends to happen on a Wednesday morning when nobody's paying attention, when all of us are at work, when no one knows what the hell our government is up to, and when you have people who are supposed to be representing us appear to represent nothing but special interests. And how many times have you been to a public meeting, Ron? I know you've been there to get honors, to bring animals in, or how many times have you spoken as a private citizen at a public meeting?
That's the second time.
Wow.
The second time I've ever spoken at a public meeting.
And why this one? Why this second one, I should say?
Because it stands. It stands for everything I believe in the environment. We talk about all these politicians, everybody, the Parks Department says we're all about conservation. We do a big talk. We got to walk the walk, man. I'm tired of hearing words, okay? I want to walk the walk. We've got to do something about this. And I thought that if I didn't say anything, I'd be viewed as a hypocrite, which I would be. People were telling me, there were a lot of people who told me, Ron, don't do this. You're just gonna hurt yourself. It's a done deal. The decision's been made. I go, you know what? If we have that attitude for everything, nothing will ever change, man. My dad always told me, listen, be the change you want to see. So I don't care if I put my neck on the line by going up there and saying what I did. It's a matter of principle, man. People got to have some kind of ethics, some kind of principle, and I wouldn't have any if I didn't step up. Especially since I live in that neighborhood. That's my backyard.
And to Joe Martinez's credit, the commissioner who I rarely agree with, and Sally Hayman's credit, who I rarely agree
Exactly.
with, and Joe Martinez, talk about fatalism. He basically was like, I know what's going to happen. It's the same shit that always happens. There's nothing I can do about it, but at least I can speak out as the commissioner of a neighboring district and understanding the real impact that this is going to have on my constituents in our community. Someone needs to speak out against it. And if I'm not mistaken, Ron, Sally Hayman, who was the no vote, and Joe Martinez, the only two no votes, they spoke. Raquel Regalado, the representative for the district, spoke basically, as far as I could discern, as almost a paid lobbyist for the developers, but no other commissioners really, who they just voted yes for this. They didn't say a word. They just kind of sat there. Or in some case, in the case of pay-to-play Keon Hardeman, he just left. In the case of Commissioner DUI Pepe Diaz, he just wandered away, let Oliver Gilbert and his stupid bow tie take over the gavel. And like, what kind of community we live in when a corrupt clown like Oliver Gilbert gets to shut you down from speaking after 60 seconds at a meeting is beyond me. But did you hear a single word from a commissioner? 10 of them voted for this as to why this had to happen right now.
Right. No. There was no other words from the commissioners. Yeah. I mean, Commissioner Regalado, basically what she did was she was just clarifying things with the attorney, the county attorney. That was what she was doing. And she said that, she did emphasize that these people are going to have to abide by what Durham and the surveys say. And I think there's still some hurdles ahead there, Billy. If they do what they say they're going to do and they have independent authorities go in there and take these surveys and use wildlife utilization rules, they're going to have to make some adjustments at the very least.
But it's now my understanding, though, that the public comment side of this is effectively over. They got their vote. They got their win, and now they either do or don't do what Durham says, or what. I don't know who's going to enforce that. But I mean, are you going to have any more say from here on out in the process?
Oh, listen, whether I have any say in the county commission room or it's going to be in the front of the media, I'm going to follow up. I'm going to hold them accountable, and nobody's going to tell me that I can't do that. I will use every resource I have. If I find that they are not abiding by what they were promised in this commission meeting, I will expose them, and I'll expose all the commissioners who said that they would do this and didn't back it up.
Ron Magill, concerned citizen, concerned private citizen, and resident of Miami-Dade County, adjacent to this calusa development, another environmental and I think political disaster occurring in real time. I say political disaster because what do you do when your government is a rogue government? What do you do when your government has become nothing but, in my opinion, a continuing criminal enterprise, just doing the bidding of the highest bidder? And that is Miami-Dade commissioners Raquel Regalado, Oliver Gilbert, Jean Monestime, Keon Hardeman, Eileen Higgins, Danielle Cohen-Higgins, Keone McGee, Javier Soto, Jose Pepe Diaz, and Rene Garcia. Those are the 10 votes with very little to say for themselves as to why they support this beyond the Bacardi name and GL Homes. I mean, major power players, basically oligarchs in this system that is because Miami. Ron, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your advocacy. Let's save those bats, huh?
Thank you, Billy.
In the rookery. Rookery.
The rookery.
What is a rookery? What is a rookery?
That's another thing. A rookery is where birds go to sleep, to nest, for sanctuary. It's not a place where they have to go to feed. That was one of the big things that they're saying. Well, there's not enough fish around the rookery to feed these things, so that it's not important. That's bull. Okay, a rookery is where birds go to rest and to nest because they are protected. They are protected from human involvement. Okay, and that's a rookery, and it was already designated a rookery by Florida Wildlife Commission.
I'm gonna get thee to a rookery. You need to nest and rest. You've had quite a couple of days. Thanks, Ron.
Thank you, Billy. Take care, buddy.